Got no time for the corner boys down in the street making all that noise. Don't want no horse on 8th Avenue, 'cause tonight I'm gonna be with you. 'Cause tonight I'm gonna take that ride across the river to the Jersey side. Take my baby to the carnival, and I'll take you all over the rides. Down the shore, everything's alright.
This is obviously a big day for our family, and so we got everybody to come out. So not only is the First Lady of New Jersey, who's been here before with me, but she's back. My wife, Mary Pat, is here tonight. But all 4 of our children are now invaded in New Hampshire as well. So, but a friendly invasion. Our oldest son, Andrew, eldest daughter, Sarah. Our younger son, Patrick. And the baby of the family who turned 12 3 days ago, Bridget. But now I've finally decided, and I told them this morning, I want to tell everybody in New Hampshire, I want to be the next President of the United States, and I intend to win this election. So this morning in New Jersey, we talked about the things that are really important. Our country is in not a state of anger. And the media says that America's angry. I really believe they're wrong. America's in a state of anxiety. Talked about 4 big issues so far in this campaign, and I think they're the biggest things that we need to deal with. I'm going to talk about them really quickly, and then we're going to get to you asking me questions about whatever is on your mind. First, we led with this. We have to reform our entitlement system in this country. Now listen, I think that these programs are very important, but the only way these programs are going to continue to work, that they're going to be there for the people who need them, is if we reform them. So we put forward some very straightforward ideas. We said first, it is one of the real blessings that everybody is living longer. You know, the average life expectancy for a woman now in America is 83. The average life expectancy for a man is 79. I see some of the women smiling here. But when these programs were created, the average life expectancy was the mid-60s. Now this is a blessing, because not only are we living longer, but we're living a better quality of life. But we need to update these programs to reflect that longer life. So I've said, let's raise the retirement age 2 years, and let's phase it in over 25 years. That means when we finally get to the 2-year increase, I'll be 77 years old. We're not talking about an idea that's going to make the world stop spinning on its axis. This is things that people can plan for, and we need to make the programs more solid. Second, I've said we need to means test Social Security. And let me be specific about exactly what that means. If you make $200,000 a year or more in retirement income, not assets, retirement income, that means you've got $4 to $5 million saved to throw off $200,000 in income after you stop working. Do you really need that Social Security check? And you know, Social Security to me was created for exactly what the 2 words put forward. Is to give you that sense of security that no one in America who worked hard and paid into the system would grow old in poverty. We don't want that to happen in our country for people who have worked and paid into that system. Well, listen, if you have $5 million in the bank, God bless you, you're not growing old in poverty. Let's make sure that others don't. And we need to make those programs strong for that reason. Same thing with Medicare. Let's increase the eligibility age 2 years, phase it in over 25. And let's make sure that we means test that as well. So if you make over $200,000, let's not subsidize your premiums by 75%, which is what we do now. Let's just subsidize it by 10%. We'll still give you a subsidy, but much less if you have the money to be able to pay for your health care. Because what that will mean is that program will be viable for the people who don't have the money. We don't want people choosing between rent and going to the doctor. We don't want people choosing between heat and food. That's what these programs are about. I had a guy, when I did a town hall meeting in Exeter, yell at me, "I paid for it." I said, "I know you did. But there's lots of things you pay for in life that you don't get something immediately back." Right? For those of us who own a home, we pay for homeowners insurance every year, right? We pay that homeowners insurance just to make sure that if that house burns down, that we're gonna be able to rebuild it so we have someplace to live. After you've lived in your house for 30 years, if you're going to sell it, to move someplace else, and you go to the closing, you've never made a claim on your homeowner's policy, do you call the insurance company and say, "Hey, by the way, I've been really good, I paid all my premiums, I didn't make any claims, can I have the money back?" They say, "No, no, no, no." I said, "Well, I didn't get anything." They said, "Yes, you did." You have the security of knowing when you're putting your head on that pillow every night that if something did happen to your home, we'd be there to help you rebuild it. Another one of the candidates in this race said, if you let the government means test or do any of this, that means they're lying and they're stealing from you. We can't let that happen. Let me fill them in. The lying and the stealing has already happened. It's already happened, everybody, right? It's already happened. You remember back in the race in 2000, remember Al Gore? Al Gore said there was a lockbox. Remember? There was a lockbox that all the money from Social Security was in. Let me give you the bad news. You know what's in the lockbox? A stack of IOUs. A stack of IOUs from the federal government. They're taking the money and spending it now. They're not going in any lockbox. The IOUs are going in the lockbox. So let's stop lying to the American people. Second, we need to talk about how we rebuild our economy. You know, this president's running around taking a victory lap over 2% growth. This is the weakest recovery from a recession in post-World War II history. The fact is that there's not the level of hope or opportunity that there used to be. And the way to get there is to get to 4% growth or more. And here's how we do it real quickly. First, we got to simplify this tax system. And we got to get rid of all the special interest loopholes and the deductions. And by the way, I mean almost all of them, everybody. I'd keep two. The mortgage interest deduction and the charitable contribution deduction. The rest of them, they need to go away, and if they do, then we can lower rates to 28% as the top rate, which is what the top rate was when Reagan did tax reform in 1986, and the lowest rate should be in the single digits. And you should be able to do your taxes not in 15 days, but in 15 minutes. Now, my father, who was with me today, who's 82 years old, right? He's a CPA. He hates this idea. He's like, "Man, I raised you being an accountant. What are you doing to me, man?" Tax system. Secondly, we got to get businesses back investing in America. Do you know that our businesses have over $2 trillion in profits that American businesses have made overseas? And they don't bring it home because we're one of the few countries who taxes it twice. And we have the highest business tax rate in the world at 35%. So what are they doing? They're not dumb. They keep the money overseas. They don't have to pay the taxes. So what are we getting? 35% is zero. Everybody is zero. So we should lower those rates to 25%, and we should have a one-time opportunity for them to bring that $2 trillion back home, and let's tax that at 8.75%. Third, we need to get regulation off the back of the American people. Do you know that last year, the Obama administration issued more pages of regulation than any administration in American history? And it is their own Small Business Administration says that it costs $10,000 per employee for business in America just to comply with the regulation. But I'll tell you, one of the things I'm going to look forward to the most, if I become president, is getting my lawyers during the transition to go through every one of these overreaching, illegal executive orders this president has signed and put a stack of rescissions on my desk in the Oval Office the first day. Third thing we need to do is restore America's role in the world. This is a dangerous, dangerous world right now. Maybe more dangerous than any other time in my lifetime. We see it in China. We see it in Russia and Eastern Europe. Think about this, everybody. Iraq's on fire. Syria is on fire. Egypt is under martial law. Jordan's being invaded by wartime refugees. Israel is under greater threat today than it ever has been, and this president is allowing Iran to have a glide path towards a nuclear weapon. Iran. Funding Hezbollah and Hamas. Iran. That regularly says to its people, death to America. We're going to give them the nuclear weapon. And you know, for 70 years, we have given American blood and treasure to keep Europe free and united. And now, for the first time in 70 years, we have Russian troops marching across Eastern Europe. And you watch what's happening with China in the South China Sea, building artificial islands with landing strips on them. Believe me, they're not going to build resort hotels on those islands. They're for military purposes so that they can dominate what happens in the shipping lanes in the South China Sea. Why are our allies nervous and why are our adversaries aggressive? The president is seen as not somebody who's good to his word. He said if Assad used chemical weapons on his people in Syria, that he would take him out. And then Assad used chemical weapons on his people and he said, never mind. So we need to rebuild our military, because a strong American military is not built to wage war. It is built to prevent war and make sure that the world is peaceful, because no one will challenge our strength, and we need to do that. Let me be very specific in New Hampshire, because I know that's what you want. What's happened in the last month in Washington, D.C. has made America weaker and more vulnerable. The activities of Senator Paul and the people who supported him in taking tools away from fighting terrorists around the world and preventing them from coming here has made America weaker and more vulnerable. I've gone to the funerals. We had a great friend of ours in our parish who was killed in the Trade Center on 9/11. Our oldest son's best friend's dad was killed in that building on September 11th. And I've now watched for 13 years as that young man has grown up from 8 to 21 without his dad. And every year on his father's birthday, since Facebook has been around, he puts his father's picture on his Facebook page, and he said, "I'll never forget you, Dad." But we can't forget his father either. And when we take actions like taking away rightful constitutional authority away from our intelligence agencies to keep the homeland safe, we're forgetting his father. And what we are doing is setting up another calamity to hit America. We don't want to do that. I've done it. I can tell you, I can promise you, you can do it in a way that protects your civil liberties and protects the homeland at the same time. You just have to have the smarts and the guts to do it. Senator Paul has made this country less safe, and if I become president, we're going to protect the homeland, not lower our defenses against it. Do you know, among the industrialized nations of the world, we are 27th in science and 24th in math. You cannot be 27th in science and 24th in math and think that you're going to remain the #1 economic power in the world or the #1 military power in the world. You're not going to. We have an education system in this country that is built for the comfort of adults, not for the potential of children. None of us want to fight this fight because it's uncomfortable. But we know. They tell us that we can't reform teacher tenure. We did it in New Jersey. We did it in New Jersey, and here's the thing. You know, the teachers' unions will tell you, it's too complicated. You can't understand whether we're a good teacher or not. Let me tell you. You know it. There are parents and grandparents out here. But you know the first 10 minutes into back to school night, right? You go to back to school night, you sit in that classroom where your child is sitting, and that teacher starts to talk to you. You know in the first 10 minutes, this is either going to be a good year or this is going to be a tough year. This is not rocket science, everybody. And what's happening is that we're spending a fortune on education, and we're getting 27th and 24th. It is unacceptable for a country that wants to be #1. We need to put parents back in charge. We need to put local communities back in charge of education. And we need to make sure that we take the power away from these teachers' unions and we put it back in the hands of parents and communities where they belong. If we do, we'd have a longer school day, which we need. We'd have a longer school year, which we need. And how about this to end it? Why not hold the people who are teaching accountable for the product that they produce? If we're 24th and 27th, they got to do better, and we've got to force them to do better. And if I'm president, that's exactly what we're going to do. All right, so here we go. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop the speech stuff. We're going to get to the fun part. There's really only one rule when I'm here in New Hampshire. You raise your hand, I call on you. And then ask me the question. That's it. There are no other rules. Ask me whatever you want about whatever's on your mind. But I'm sure it's the same way in New Hampshire. And I know it's the same way in New Jersey. When it's time to work, we take off our coats. So if you don't mind, I'm taking mine off. Anybody else that's got one on, take it off too. Let's get to work. All right. Sir, right there. Someone will give you a microphone right here. Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming, Governor. Appreciate you being here. My question concerns healthcare. Okay, as you know, prescriptions cost a tremendous amount of money here in the States versus other countries. Okay, what I'm asking you to do, if it's possible, for you to arrange that we pay the same amount for our prescription as a country as the rest of the civilized countries do.
Well, let me answer that in a few different ways. It is expensive, but here's the thing. We have any number of these drugs that have been developed over the course of time, most of them in American laboratories by a combination of the American pharmaceutical industry and our government making some investment as well, and they've changed the quality of life. The balance we have to find here is we've got to make it profitable for them to continue to be able to invest billions and billions of dollars in research when we know that most of the research that they do doesn't lead to a drug they can market. So the easiest thing in the world for a politician to say to you in response to that would be, damn right, let's pay less, because that's the easy answer. But we can't say to the pharmaceutical companies, invest billions, but you're not going to make that money back. Because if we say that, you know what's going to happen. They won't invest it. So the problem that we've got to deal with is to find the balance between drugs becoming so prohibitively expensive that people are not going to be able to utilize them even if cures are followed, or discovered rather, and being able to make sure that we continue to have our pharmaceutical companies invest the money they need to be able to find the cures for the next illness or the treatments for the next illness. But when this year the National Institutes of Health budget only goes up 0.1% and the National Science Foundation goes down 4.3%, but at the same time what we're spending on Medicaid goes up 16%, it makes no sense. Let's invest in the things that will give us a yield and produce the kind of system you're talking about. But we can't just wave a magic wand to have it happen. We got to make the investments that make it happen. I think the government should do more. That's why I want to reform entitlements and get taxes lower so that we can bring in the kind of money that we need to be able to make those kind of investments so that we can then say to the companies, hey, we're your partners. We want some control on prices for the taxpayers who invested in this because they're your investors too. Yes, ma'am. I'll give you mine.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, Governor. In light of some of the decisions from last week, can you give me an example? And the next president is probably going to be able to appoint a few Supreme Court judges. What are some examples of who you would appoint?
Well, one of the folks, and the example I'll use for you is someone who's on the court now who I know well. I was U.S. Attorney for New Jersey for 7 years. One of my predecessors was Sam Alito. And if you read Justice Alito's opinions, what they are an absolute tribute to what the role of the court should be in my view, which is they are not there to make law, they are not there to make social policy. They are there to interpret the laws passed by the Congress and signed by the President, and that's it.
Hi, Governor, how are you?
Good, sir.
I'm interested in voting for that Republican candidate who has the best chance of defeating Monica Lewinsky's ex-boyfriend's wife. Can you tell me why you think you might be that candidate?
Sure. Now, there'll be lots of people, there are lots of people in this race, and there'll be lots of people who will give you their answer based upon their theory of what the race will be or how you run a race like this. I don't have to give you a theory. I've done it, and here's how. What they said at the time was, and lots of folks in the press wrote this, that on Christie, you know, this tough guy, blunt, direct, running against a woman, this is going to be a disaster. He's going to do something or say something to this woman that's going to just make him lose. We had a debate. And if you want to know how I'd run against Hillary Clinton, this is an example. In the debate, the first debate we had with Senator Bono, they asked one of those really dopey questions that the press asks at these debates. This has been an awfully negative campaign with charges going back and forth. Could you please tell me something that you like about your opponent? Come on, man. Really? Like that informs you in some way? Like, what do we like about our opponent? So she went first. And so she said, this is what she said she liked about me. She said, he's funny on late night television, but he's bad for New Jersey. That's what she liked about me. Man, good thing they didn't ask her what she didn't like, right? And her crowd went crazy. Woo! They're hooting and yelling and screaming at me, right? And then it's going to be my turn. And I know that my staff is sitting in the green room going, uh-oh. What's going to happen here? Let me tell you what happened. I looked at Senator Bono, and this is basically what I said. I said, Senator Bono obviously is a wonderful mother who's raised a great family, but even more than that, she's someone who's dedicated the last 18 years of her life to public service. And while we have profound philosophical disagreements about how to run this state, I honor her service. We don't need less people like her. We need more who are willing to offer themselves for public service. And I will not do anything during this campaign to denigrate the quality of her service, even though I disagree with her positions. Well, let me tell you, everybody. That's not only answering the question, because he said say something you like, but it also shows you that you can absolutely lay your opponent out without saying a bad word. Now, other people will give you theories about whether they can do that. I ran against a female opponent, and I not only beat her, I beat her good. And if I'm the nominee of the Republican Party for president in November 2016, I'm not only going to beat her, I'm going to beat her fair and square and take this country back for our people. There's a lady in the back right there in the white sweater.
I have a question. Many years ago, when I first got interested in politics, Pat Buchanan came to Manchester, New Hampshire and said, we need to close the borders. And I thought he was crazy. I had no idea what he's talking about. I'm not worried about people coming over to pick vegetables. I'm worried about terrorism. What will you do to keep our country safer?
A few things. First off, you know, the things that we need to do about border security are a number, and let's go through them. I'm not a guy who's looking to build a wall from one end of our southern border to the other. I think it's inefficient, I think it's ineffective, because I gotta tell you the truth, I know the human spirit. I've never met a human being who was determined, who couldn't find their way over, under, or around a wall, if they really wanted to. Now there may be small sections that, or fence or a wall may be helpful, and I'm happy to do it in those small sections, but we also have to use technology. We need to use drones and cameras. We need to use manpower on the border as well to keep it secure. And we also have to say to folks, employers in this country, you have to stop employing people who are not here legally. We have to require all employers to use E-Verify, and if you don't use it, you're going to have to face a significant penalty, much more significant than whatever you might save by hiring folks who are here legally. On the terrorism front, though, those things will help, but you know, it's part of what I talked about at the Open. You know, we need to have every tool available to our intelligence agencies to be able to find these folks before they do wrong. The problem with what's happening in Washington now is they've taken some of those tools away. If Congress is worried, as they should be, about our intelligence community operating within the law, then use congressional oversight aggressively to make sure they do. and use the Justice Department if they break the law to prosecute people who break the law in our own government and send them to jail. But don't take tools away from the hardworking people to do exactly what you're concerned about. Whether it's on our southern border or our northern border, whether it's at our points of entry in our airports or our seaports, we have to have the intelligence to know that when they arrive, we intervene, or we intervene before they ever get on the plane or the ship to get here.
I've been in healthcare my whole career, but my question tonight isn't about healthcare, and I just want to say the specifics that you've given so far tonight are refreshing. Thank you. American manufacturing. I think I understand what needs to be done, but what can be done to bring jobs back to this country, and why hasn't it been done? Without the rhetoric, but economically.
Sure. Listen, I think the single biggest problem in manufacturing jobs leaving this country was cost. Here's the difference maker, and I'll be very specific with you about it in getting manufacturing jobs back here: energy. See, one of the biggest costs of a manufacturing plant is electricity, is the power to run the plant, to be able to run all of the complicated, complex, new, modern type of equipment they have to be able to do it, and to do it in a way that's efficient enough to keep up with the rest of the world. We are on the absolute precipice of an energy renaissance and revolution in this country, and we have this president and his extreme environmental policies stopping us from doing it. We have a 100-year supply of natural gas now below this country that we can access. We have oil reserves in this country that we never were able to access before, that we now can safely through new drilling techniques. We now have the ability to work with Canada and Mexico to make North America the new energy continent. In Canada, the tar sands and all of the oil that they're producing up in Canada, which they want to share with the United States, this president won't even let them build the Keystone Pipeline. He'd rather have them put that oil on train cars. How environmentally unsafe is that compared to putting it in a pipeline? But because a group of his environmental contributors have told him they don't want the pipeline, even though his own State Department says it poses no environmental risk, he still stops it. And that's where we can compete. We're not going to compete on the price of our labor, nor would we want to. We want Americans who are working at good manufacturing jobs to make a good wage to support their families. But where we can compete is on energy costs. And if we drive those energy costs down, we're going to bring a lot of those back, because they also want the quality that American workers bring as well. So that's the way we need to do it. And we need to have an energy policy that acknowledges that we need to do this, and we need to push back against environmental extremism.
Hi, it's a pleasure to meet you. I wanted to know what your stand on the Second Amendment is, since they're trying to strip it right down to nothing at this time.
Well, as some of you may know, New Jersey has some of the most aggressive gun control laws in the country, depending upon who ranks them, 2 or 3. Now, we're a densely populated state, and there were people who, for whatever their intentions were, wanted to make it very, very difficult for folks to exercise their Second Amendment rights in New Jersey. Since I've been governor, we've done what I think are some common sense things in that regard. My test is this as a former prosecutor. If a law enhances public safety, I'm willing to consider it. If it's just a press release, I'm not. So I vetoed the bill that was going to ban 50 caliber rifles, because those guns are about as big as a conference table. They're not an urban assault weapon. You need like 5 guys to carry it, to bring it in, right? So we vetoed that. When they wanted to lower the magazine capacity from 15 rounds to 10 rounds, we vetoed that. So I said, I don't know how that makes people safer. I don't know how that enhances public safety. Young man right there, in the back.
What, as president, would you put in place so that colleges aren't necessarily making profits off of students?
Now, here's why this happens, okay? Now imagine, let's say tonight we get done with this and everybody's a little bit hungry and we're gonna go out for dinner. Now let's say a group of 6 of us go out for dinner. And we all order whatever we order, maybe we have a little wine or a drink or whatever, and then let's say the bill comes in at the end of the night. They put the bill down, and all it says on the bill is food, $80. You look at that bill and you'd go, hey, buddy, come over here. You gotta write out what did everything cost? Who ordered what? What did it cost? And tell me. You wouldn't pay an $80 dinner bill without all of it broken out. Have you looked at a college bill? A college bill has 3 lines. Tuition, room and board, other fees.
Thank you, Governor. You know that veterans health care is terrible. Could you give us an outline on how you would like to fix it and get rid of the bones that are in there now?
Well, the first thing you have to do is put competent people in charge and let them run something. But let's be specific again about what we do on veterans care. You all know that what we do when we get people to volunteer for our military, whether they enlist or whether they come through our service academies, is we make a deal with them. We tell them that in return for your service to our country, in return for putting your life on the line to protect our lives, we're going to provide you with health care for the rest of your life. And if I become the commander-in-chief, our veterans will understand that they have a commander-in-chief who will put their lives first, not only when they're in combat, but after they come home and they take off the nation's uniform too. That's the way we do it. I'm going to say things at times that you're going to say, I can't believe he said that out loud. That's supposed to be an inside thought, not an outside thought. You're going to sometimes shake your head and say, I wish he hadn't quite said it that way. But I'll guarantee you, here's one thing you'll never say. You'll never say, I don't know what he thinks. You'll never say, I don't know how he feels. You'll never say, I don't know what he's willing to fight for and if he's willing to fight for it. You'll know all that. That's the promise I make to you in this campaign. You'll know all of that about me, in addition to all the position papers. You'll know that. And if that's the kind of person you want to be the next President of the United States, then I think I'll be able to earn your vote. But I have no interest in breaking the greatest rule my mother ever gave me, which was, she said, Christopher, be yourself. Because then tomorrow, you don't have to try to remember who you pretended to be yesterday. I have no interest in being a pretend President of the United States who puts on some act for you. The only way I want to be president is if I get to be me, and you get to be you. That's the way this country will recover. That's the way this country will believe once again that we can make a difference. That's the way this country will be able to lead the world again, through honest disagreement, honest compromise, and honest exchange between the leaders of this country and the people of this country. That's what I'm going to offer you over the course of the next 18 months. And if it all works out, we'll see each other in January of 2017 in Washington, D.C. And you can be guaranteed I'll be saying to myself, thank you, New Hampshire. Thank you all very much.
There's no time for the corner boys down in the street making all that noise. No horse on 8th Avenue. 'Cause tonight I'm gonna be with you. 'Cause tonight I'm gonna take that ride across the river to the Jersey side. Take my baby to the carnival, and I'll take you all over.